Hello, 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 and welcome to the $1 Million Electrician Podcast, where we help home service pros like you supercharge your business and spark up those sales.
I'm Joseph Lucani, and together with my co-host, Clay Newmeyer, we're here to share the secrets that have helped electricians sell over $1 million from a single service van.
Now, it's time for sales. It's time for scale. It's time to become $1 million electrician. Hello, guys, and welcome back. Joe, I am super excited to be here again today. Now, we've got a very important show. We're talking about level 2 objections, the stall. I've been doing some flight training, man. I did some stall training, and it's kind of where planes go to start dying. They dive, and then you die, you crash. It's not good.
Yeah, I was going to say stalling the engine's probably not what we want to talk about in that situation.
Stalling the wings. This is kind of similar, but not quite so dire. And I think this episode is going to help a lot of people learn the difference between a customer saying no versus them saying not now, and what to do with that not now, and still how to recover, just like I'm learning to recover a plane out of stall and keep flying, how to help electricians recover from a stall and keep flying and get to a place of, well, trust, back to that place of rapport where you can actually have an open and honest conversation about the work ahead, this presentation, how things are going and what they're thinking.
I can't wait. And honestly, I think one of the best things about handling the stall is that if you think about where the technician's at this point, they've done all the hard work. They've gotten the lead. They've gone to the lead. They've diagnosed the situation. You've presented options. You're now actually physically in discussion of it. Your ball is circling the rim. You just got to tap it in. But that's often too many times where someone just goes, it'll go in on its own. They'll get back to me.
I can't help but hear a Happy Gilmore reference there. Just tap it in. Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, taparoo. Okay, man. So what's the difference between an objection and a stall? Help me out here.
Yeah. So if we're going to hyper simplify it, an objection is when someone says no. Like they're like, no, I don't want it. You're crazy for charging that amount. Anything that you can hear an affirmative no. Like we're definitely not doing this, or I definitely don't want what you have. That's a no, and it gets treated very differently than what we're talking about here as a stall. A stall is where they'll sound like they're saying no, but there's no actual no in the sentence. So that might sound like wow, there's a lot involved here. You're right. Well, we're going to have to take some time to think about this. My wife's not home, so obviously I'm going to want to just review this with her, and we'll get back to you after I've done so.
Okay.
They never said, I don't want what you have. In fact, it's usually they're going to tell you to email it over right at that moment.
Right.
But the fact is that they've said only not now.
Right.
So our goal is to triangulate into what are they really trying to say? Make sure we're using our active listening.
Yeah.
Sound good so far?
Yeah, it does, man. So we're too busy right now. That's a stall?
Yeah. Well, let's break it into it, right? Because if they start and they say, like, I want to do the thing, but we're too busy right now. That's a double conflicted statement, because on one side, it's we want to do it, but then the but is the negation statement. And now it's we can't right now. So is it that they want to, or is it they don't want to? We need to find out.
Yeah, for sure. Makes sense. And this is what we were kind of laughing at before the show today. We were talking about how someone will call you out to their house, arrange all this, be home for you, and then tell you they're too busy, or maybe their intention has, changed. Like they're not looking to do this right now. And it's just a smokescreen, right?
Yeah. And let's actually get into an example of what this might look like, right? So let's say you go onto a call. It's going to make it a demand call. Something's physically not working. You get out to the call. It could be anything. Lights flickering. Great. I show up there. What are you hoping to accomplish? And they tell you, I'm trying to get this thing taken care of. Great. I go through, I diagnose, I build some solutions, I present some choices, and they're probably going to be more than what they were expecting. Maybe they didn't know about the cloth wiring in the wall. Maybe they didn't know about the fuse panel, and there were other concerns. So I present these concerns to them, and they go, wow, that's pretty involved. I mean, you really went through a lot of effort to do this, but to be totally honest, I'm really wasn't expecting it to be this. I'm really busy right now. I'm not going to be able to do this at this point. Is it something where you can just leave it on the counter, and then when I get off of work, I can talk to you about it? That's a stall. It's a hard stall. Honestly, I wish we could get like a sound effect of an engine sputtering out. It's like right at that moment.
That's a good effect. We should have that. You know what? You actually did it pretty good with your mouth, kind of like beatboxing in here with stalls.
Yep.
So what's the average electrician thinking at this point then?
Well, there's a couple of things that they would think, and it really depends on the level of delusionment we have. Some people are like, they really like what we're saying because at the beginning, it's usually the buildup. Wow, this is a lot more involved than I was really thinking about. We really have to consider this. Wow. Oh, and the electrician's like, oh, yes. All right. They're considering it. They're thinking about it. Great. Or they might say, you're one of the best electricians I've ever met. You're really knowledgeable, but this is just a lot of information to take in. Is it something you could just, leave on the counter? We'll get back to you with. Wow. They think I'm the best electrician ever. This is great. And they leave feeling good about themselves. The problem is in that moment, we're lying to ourselves. We're allowing ourselves to believe what we want to believe rather than what the client's actually saying. And this requires a skill called active listening, where you're not listening to just respond, you're listening to actually answer the question they really have, the unspoken thing that's there, right? So if the customer were to say, well, there's a lot that's going on right now, and I'm really busy. I completely understand where you're coming from. You're busy, we're busy, life happens. But can I ask you a question? When we first arrived, what did you say you wanted to accomplish? What's changed between now and then?
Okay. So we're uncovering an unspoken truth then. A stall equals an unspoken truth.
Mm-hmm. They're not willing to say the thing that needs to be said, usually to preserve your ego or to preserve the relationship, or even just so that they can maintain control over the situation. Some people will stall just to make sure that they feel in control. Others will stall because the act of making a decision doesn't line up with a procrastinator.
Love this, man. I love that we're going into this. This is actually one of my favorite times of day because we just get to chat through this stuff like
Mm-hmm.
fully and deeply. One of the things that I find hilarious about this is every once in a while, one of your techs will leave a place, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
feeling confident, like, oh, yeah, no, they're in. This is a sale, guys. Mark it
Oh
down.
yeah.
That's a sale. And it's like the only thing missing is the actual cash exchange. And this is a sale.
Yeah. And actually that conversation happens where someone will come in and report a sale, and be like, hey, we got a win. They call the boss because they're proud. Be like, hey, we got a sale. Wonderful. What did you sell? I was just with the Johnsons. They said that they wanted to go with our silver option. Great. What was the total on that? $8,000. Can you believe it? Awesome. All right. What was the deposit they give? Oh, they didn't give a deposit. That we're actually going to be meeting with them, or we're gonna be discussing on Monday. Oh, cool. So you're going back on Monday? No, no, they said they were going to get back to me and we're just going to have a phone call on Monday. But you schedule a phone call? Oh, no, no. He said he was going to call me. So you left with a don't call me, I'll call you?
And
Yeah.
that's the inherent problem that I don't want to take us too far off track,
Hmm.
but this is a huge thing because if they stall, this has happened to all of us. I'm sure if you're listening to us right now on the podcast, you've felt this before. If they stall and you pull away and you email that over,
Hmm.
like 80% of these are as good as gone.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 months down the road with no further investigation, actions, follow-up calls, any of that. Maybe you get lucky once in a while and someone reaches out and goes, oh yeah, hey, we haven't taken action yet. We'd love
Hmm.
to move forward. And you're like, yeah, it's a sale that I didn't expect. But the challenge with all of that is like, how sustainable of a business model is that?
I mean, isn't it the quote, if wishes were fishes, we'd all be fishermen? I
I
mean, that's
haven't heard
literally,
that before, but I
no,
like it.
no. Well, the concept really is that this person is wishing for the reality they live in rather than actually being in the reality they're currently in.
Mm,
Like if you hope in something, there's nothing wrong in hope. I believe in faith and belief. I'm for it,
yeah.
but it has to be rooted in some sort of tangible belief, right? Why are you so convinced that they are going to move forward? Why are you so convinced that you're willing to call the office and say this is a sale?
Yeah.
Often because you either are not seeing the signs or you're choosing not to believe them. And I like to default and assume that people just don't know the signs and therefore are more likely to believe because they don't know.
Yeah. And I'd also like to default and say, in a homeowner's defense, that they're there with the right intentions too.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of external factors here. One is that everyone's being marketed and tried to, there's attempts to sell them on something
Hmm.
3,000 times a day at this point. Like it's
Yeah.
insane. So everyone's got a wall up. Everybody wants a little time to think. And
Hmm.
time's the enemy of all of us. attention span's shorter than ever. And so even though in the moment stalling might feel like the right play to allow them time to think about it, the next problem that's not either theirs or yours, it just is, it's human at this point, is like they're not going to their schedule and scheduling time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens next?
I mean, they're stuck because if you think about it, there are two kinds of people. Those who, when they're faced with a problem, need to do it now. And there are those who, when they're faced with a problem, can do it later. And later is not a specified time. It's
Yeah.
really the difference between like, I was the kind of guy that when it was assigned homework, I had to do it that weekend, even if it was a month away.
Yeah.
And there's others that are like, you know what, I'll wait till the 49th hour. Like, we're going to do it the last second on bonus time.
100%.
So if there's
I
no timeline for them, they're kind of screwed.
No, exactly. And I love adding that pre-frame to this. I hope you don't mind stalling us on our stalling discussion here. But like in that way, business owners and homeowners are the same.
Mm-hmm.
We're all living in urgency, prioritizing what's hottest right now. In other words, what burns the most right now. And if what they called you for to give a price on, and you are able to present that price, and now they're just looking for more time, that doesn't actually mean that's the right thing to do.
Correct.
What is
I
the
agree
right
with
thing
that.
to do, Joe?
So the right thing to do is to be willing to have an honest conversation with them and stay true to your primary motive, which wasn't to sell, but it was to serve. So how do you serve this person when they're feeling like they're overwhelmed? We narrow it down. So the formula for handling a stall is acknowledge, reframe, and ask again. So someone's busy. I completely understand what you're talking about. I mean, get it. There's so many things going on in life that can take our attention. It makes sense that you're so busy. That's why we're really busy too. I get it. Now, the reframe would then be like, but with that being said, with you being so busy, how much time do you really feel like you're going to have in order to get this dressed? How much time do you really feel like you're going to set aside to really dive into this and discuss it? The reason why I'm so insistent that we discuss it while we're together is I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice by making you have to review all the plans I'm sending over, break down all these technical designs, and then figure out which one's the best fit when the electrician is not the one who's physically here. So you can take the time if you want to do this later. Or what we can do is if you really want to put this to bed, I'm willing to stay here with you and we'll go through it. That way you're completely comfortable with what you're doing and you know for a fact you're making the right choice. So with that being said, how would you like to proceed?
Okay. Love it. Why is that the right thing to do?
Because a lot of times people don't necessarily know that they're stalling until they've already done it. Meaning that like this person could call, like, let's give you an example. Someone could give you a call with that flickering light. And they knew when they called you that they wanted that light to be fixed. They acknowledged it was like this was a primary concern, is an open cycle in their mind. So
Yeah.
they call you to close this open cycle. But then do your diligence, you find out that there is a no grounded cloth line that's feeding it, right? The light's still flickering. Their need is still there. But what you've done is you've educated them and you've explained that there's more. So instead of removing one item to the list, I've added 2 items to their list. I've actually increased the mental load that they need to carry, meaning that if they leave, they're actually left in a worse situation than I found them. Because not only do they still have the problem, but now they have more unchecked boxes, meaning they have to take time away from their mental equity in order to give it away.
Mm,
The reason this is so dangerous is some people will choose to do a band aid to forget it. It's almost like hitting the snooze alarm on something.
yeah.
Okay, we'll just change the light fixture. Okay, let's just get it done. We'll move on with this. We'll address that in the spring. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And then they check the box, and they move on from it.
Right.
What
So
we're doing, sorry, go ahead, forgive me.
no, please
Yeah.
continue.
What I was saying was that in this current moment, what we're trying to do with the customer is we're saying, I acknowledge that things are busy. I hear you. We're busy as well, so I completely get it. Then I'm shifting back over to say, I want to help you through this. And really, from one electrician to another, the way you're helping them is by walking them through how they can make a purchase. That way, they can get the thing fixed and they can choose an option they feel comfortable with. And when you leave, the problem is solved both mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah.
So that's the outcome we're trying to get to. Because the inverse of that is rather than leaving them solved and happier, you're leaving them with a problem and then some.
Totally. So the way I'm seeing this now is like by your explanation in this conversation,
Hmm.
just following this thread,
Hmm.
is that the right thing for us to do is acknowledge the panic that we know we're going to incite by presenting them a
Hmm.
price and solutions that they weren't expecting today. And
Hmm.
that should be our expectation because we're master electricians with years of experience and knowledge.
Hmm.
How could they possibly know what's all going on? And how could we possibly sleep good at night if we left without addressing all that's going on for
Hmm.
now and for the future? And so, by literally with holding that assumption and the expectation that we're going to create a little bit of panic, we
Hmm.
should actually expect these stalls then and be proficient in handling that and being able to come to the table and have an open and honest discussion with them to handle that so that we're not, you didn't say the law of open cycles, but
Hmm.
failing the law of open cycles, which is just to say, Joe, that the more things on our list that aren't getting done, the
Hmm.
more this life force is sucked from our being.
Hmm.
The vampires of livelihood, as we say.
That's true. It really, really is. It blows my mind how that works, but it's true.
So, if this is all the right thing to do, then maybe
Hmm.
we just blew some minds. Maybe this is a complete perspective shift, but I do
Hmm.
believe this.
Hmm.
And truly, we're coming with that service and we're coming with that experience. And our goal is to educate people and to
Hmm.
create solutions for people so that they don't feel like they're just left in the dust with now knowing more and not having the ability to do anything about it with
Hmm.
things on the list that couldn't be checked. We're acknowledging that they could be checked and we're making space to discuss how that could be checked.
Bingo. So the thing is that actually leads us into a conversation of why options actually help you primarily with the stall. Because like let's take this exact customer and I can break down how it would work.
Yeah.
So the customer is calling for the flickering light. They have an expectation, like a reasonable price expectation of what it could be. Maybe they're using 1990s numbers, but
Yeah.
they're likely have some sort of basis in reality, right? So the thing is what do they run into though? If we tell them that they have a knob and tube circuit, or we tell them that they have a cloth line, or there is a fire hazard that's present. Now we've opened the box and we made it larger, but if we don't solve the problems that we've necessarily created, they have to go outside of us to do so. So, what
Mm.
that might look like is, hey, I want to get this done, but now I have to find a painter who's going to come and reseal that hole. Let me get back to you after I found that painter. Compared to, I completely understand where you're coming from. So you wouldn't have to do that. I've already included us doing a completely turnkey project where we find the painter and we are the GC and make sure that we've done the dumpster and we take care of all the circuit, and that'll give you a lifetime guarantee. Or I have options without those things and you can find it on your own. How would you like to proceed?
Yeah.
So it gives them a way out of the stall by providing them with the options where they don't have to worry about it.
And something you said earlier that's really important is we're not attached to the sale.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes this truly an ethical move. And to be open and willing to have that conversation, if you're literally attached to serving people,
Mm-hmm.
not selling people, then this is, from what I'm seeing in this conversation, it's the only right thing to do. In fact, let me flip this freaking thing on its head for a minute and
Go
say
for it.
something that might actually surprise some people.
I'm for it. Let's do it.
If you're not getting stalls on a call, does that maybe indicate that you're not serving at the highest level?
I mean, it'd have to definitely be looked at. I would want to see their options and really figure it out. Because the thing is, a stall comes up in many different circumstances. Sometimes it's due to you, sometimes it's customer circumstance, sometimes it's just their demeanor. But regardless of their reason, you should expect that it's going to happen at least on a good amount of your calls. The reason why our process is so effective is not because we're not expecting them, but we're doing what we can to reduce their ability of that stall holding weight by time it comes at the end of the call. So by us going through and having the solutions built in advance and having it very clearly articulated as to why we're doing these things, it prevents the overwhelm that would lead someone to go into a stall. So the best way I determine whether they're doing it the right thing or not Let me see your options. Let me see how you're presenting.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Leading from there now, if you go into handling this stall and you get a negative reaction from someone,
Mm-hmm.
someone pulls back and puts the wall back up and is like, no, 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 you're not listening. Like, I want you to email it over.
Mm-hmm.
Don't push me, man.
Mm-hmm.
You ever
So,
get that kind of response, Joe?
yeah, actually, there was a really good one that came to mind. Can I tell a quick story about it?
Please.
Okay. So there was a situation where I had a customer who wanted a generator. This was an Angie's Lead customer, which I'm sure a lot of people are like, yeah, like booing at the background. But it was an Angie's Lead customer. And she called me because she wanted a whole home generator and she was getting multiple estimates. Told me at the door getting multiple estimates. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to run the 2 call close process. So at the end of the call, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to figure out what to do. Let's design some choices. We'll get back to you. We'll sit down and design it together. She's like, no, you're just going to email it over. No, that's just what you're going to do. It's like, well, that's a great offer. I really appreciate that. I was like, but we have different ways of doing business. And she actually stopped me and was like, I'm the customer. I'm telling you to email it over. If you're not going to email it over, I'll get someone else who's going to do it. And I was like, okay, if you want it emailed, I'd be happy to do that. But I want to serve you at a higher level, and here's how. You want it emailed for the primary, if I can guess, because you want to compare. Let me make this easier for you. I'll make an email so that it's comparable, and then I'll come back and I'll literally sit down side by side with all the different options and estimates you've gotten. And if I'm not clearly the right fit, I'll throw it against the wall, we'll throw it away, and I'll stay here to make sure you get the right fit, even if it's not with us. She was like, yeah, all right, like if you're gonna come by and do it, then sure. And she ended up buying one of our top options, even though we were thousands more than the next person, because we were able to control the call and get into a value positive situation. So even if the customer is like, you're going to do this, it doesn't mean you have to do it. Because if you're understanding that by emailing them over, I'm not serving them, but by getting back getting back into their faces and being able to really sit down with them, I am serving. It's like, what would you rather do? The easy way is I'm just going to let you figure it out yourself. The
Yeah,
hard way is having the cojones to say, I'm going to stay here with you and get it done.
I love that. And it's the hard way. It's that endurance race. It's what we've talked about, staying with the
Mhm.
ridiculous. But if this is truly your purpose, wouldn't it be wrong to give up partway through?
I mean, and not just partway through. You're at the end. Like I see the finish line is 20 feet away from you. You've fallen over face into the mud. You're not even gonna crawl there. Like it's
Mm,
right there. You're just gonna lay there and just email it over after all this work, after all this effort. That's honestly embarrassing for a marathon runner.
Let me ask a hard question to our audience for a second.
Sure.
If you're thinking through this and you're hearing our perspective shift on service versus sales, and you're thinking to yourself, and you wouldn't be alone, and you ask yourself this question: if my team truly believed in service over sales and held this discussion as their truth,
Mhm.
so they could stay in these endurance races, they could have the long-winded conversations and help people feel good about their choice to work with us, what would happen then?
And I know that was for the clients and for our customers, but like, geez, if everyone had faith, there's an expression, put your faith in front of your fear, right? And pretty much the concept is imagine you've got a team of horses. The one who's in the front sets the pace. And if fear is in the front, then you'll always be a second behind the draw. But if your faith is in front, you'll be willing to put yourself out into situations you normally wouldn't be comfortable with. But because your faith is leading first, everything else follows suit. So if you can get your team to believe in what you're really trying to do, you'll find that they'll authentically come up with their own objection handles because the authenticity is tangible. You can actually really feel you cut it with a knife at the end of it.
Yeah.
That'll be the result.
And if you're asking yourself how to get there, we're seeing that. We're seeing real results of this every single day. And we've got some great wins to share. In fact, when you were sharing that story about the generator, I was
Mhm.
thinking about congratulating Nick V on his recent generator sale, where I think it was like a 17.6K option that they chose.
Mhm.
Beautiful little solution. But here was the kicker: they shared with him the next closest price, and it was about 4.5K less.
Yeah,
But the
that would be cool.
problem with that provider was they weren't including handling permits and gas.
Mhm.
Nick provided the full solution, That's what the homeowner wanted. The other provider didn't have it. Next thing you know, there's nothing in the way of this. Free
You know,
and clear.
the best part about that though is I can imagine that other person follows up with a customer, and the odds are is they're going to be told, "Oh, we went with the cheaper provider. We went with a lower number." And now
Yeah.
this guy's sitting there like, "Man, I was already $4,000 down. What are these other guys? What's Nicky V doing, man? Like, geez, they're really cheap over there."
Can you imagine going back to the homeowner and them saying, actually, we went with someone $4,500 more than you?
No one will ever say that unless they're trying to insult you. Like that's the fact. It's like you are so bad that I wanted to make sure that I bought $4,000 more from someone else just so I wouldn't have to have you in my house.
Yeah.
That's a bad sign.
Stick around, guys. We're not going to leave you empty handed. We've got a value piece for this level 2 objections. We want to share it with you. It's a great little value piece that's going to help you be able to communicate this with your team and your customers. Another win, though, Jesse. Little congratulations for Jesse. Little $3,100 ticket. I say little, but I shouldn't have, because this is a wonderful job, right? When you get a service call, keep in mind how many people out there run an average $5, $6, $7, $800 tickets in our industry. We're seeing people with $3,000 averages coming through, and Jesse nailed a nice $3,100 ticket. But what I loved about Jesse's story, Joe, is he bam fammed. What does
Yeah.
that mean, man? What's a bam fam, and why is that relative to what we're talking about today?
Book a meeting from a meeting. BAMFAM. Bam fam. The benefit is that what I love about Jesse's situation is he was able to get back into the home. They could have just said, you know what? I think it was, they're like, we'll get back to you. And instead he was like, not, you don't even have to worry about it. We'll make it so you don't have to. I'll already come back on that date. I'll send over the two options that you'd like, and then we can review it from there. And then Monday came and they ended up buying. But if they didn't, he'd end up being in a situation where it's like, oh, well, I hope they call. Oh, they didn't call on Monday. Huh, maybe they're busy. I'll call Tuesday afternoon if I haven't heard. And now you're that pest.
Absolutely. So Jesse goes back a third time, makes the deal happen. But just like you said, he didn't just give in to the stall. He stuck with it, and he helped them right to the finish line. And if you have the rapport and the 310s we've talked about before, you can clearly tell that you're able to have an open, honest, transparent conversation. He did that. So congrats to him. And congrats to both Andy and Mike, who last month sold over 160K a piece from their service vans. Sometimes it looks like a $3,000 ticket. Sometimes it looks like a $30,000 ticket, or a top option going as high as our program record. I think we're at 92,000. Dan nailed last year.
Yep.
This is just the way it works, and what happens, guys, when you serve at the highest level. Joe, I know we're going to drop a value piece, but did you want to add anything to those wins or to this topic here today before we close out?
I would say I have one bit of advice that I think would be primarily helpful for someone who may want to take action on this, but may struggle doing so.
Okay.
And I'd like to back it up just one moment and just say, if you wanted to improve in this one particular skill, there's a mindset that you can adopt that'll actually help you. And that is, instead of going for the sale, go in to make a friend. Your number one intention is, I just want to bond with this person. I want to learn about this person. I'm going to ask them questions about themselves. I don't care if they buy from me. I'm just trying to make a friend at the end of this. I understand that it's not the best approach long term because you do want to stay on process. But for someone who has those struggles and wants to figure out how to overcome these difficult things, get yourself out of the way. It's often that you're the one who's in your own way. And if you just remove that pressure from yourself, you will find a better result. And then once you start seeing the wins, then you can get more process oriented. So it becomes more authentic.
Love that, man. I love that. So, guys, if you want to get the full guide for this, we're actually sending this out for free. Wherever you're listening to us now, send us a comment, whether that be on Facebook, Instagram, on your Spotify's or Apple's, on our website, servicebyelectricians.com, and or even milliondollarservice.com. All these places you can reach out to us. And if you say this keyword, this is going to be a fun one. If you tell us to email it over, we're literally going to email over our guide to help you overcome this stall and any level 2 objection, including how to get over the email it over objection. stall.
Mm-hmm.
That wraps us up for today, guys. If you keep serving at the highest level, we'll keep showing up to help you do so. And we'll see you again next week.
Can't wait to talk to you soon. May you be blessed.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the $1 Million Electrician Podcast.
We hope you're buzzing with new ideas that charged up to take your business to the next level.
So don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with fellow electricians. Together, we'll keep the current flowing.